course, we go into the last few presentations. This is going to be about leadership. Now, for 2 days, you met and encountered numerous various opportunities and possibilities in the field of food. But how then to seize on these opportunities? So we brought here 3 speakers to talk about this. The book, it's been listed as one of the top-selling business books on Amazon. I think it was listed as one of the best books as well the other year. Yeah. So the Financial Times love it, and if they love it, you will love it too. John, pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, when I was invited to speak, and I thank you, Johan, for that, I asked, what do you want from me? And he said, a punch in the stomach. That is to the audience. But that's exactly the way I felt when I started to do research for the book, The Innovation Illusion. Now, the reason for it is that people say that we're living in the most innovative of times, and I certainly would like to hope that to be the case, but I'm sorry to say it's not. Now, how can this be, people say? Because we're certainly in a venue like this experiencing a lot of entrepreneurs, new ideas, positive thinking about the future that we all hope to materialize. And certainly enough, and sure enough, we have more people with access to more information to be able to run and build beautiful companies than ever before in history, perhaps. We have more access to capital. In fact, there's so much money out there, I've never seen anything like it. Money looking for investments, opportunities, and entrepreneurs. But there is just one thing that we tend to forget, and that is that innovation is not about input. It's about output. It's whatever comes out of a process that in some way, shape, or form involves the economic system. So whenever you read headline news of new ideas and whatever have you that will be great in the future, you need to ask yourself, will this ever happen given how the economic system looks like? Because if we think of output, and we do some serious number crunching, and believe me, we have done so, me and my co-author, Mr. Fredrik Eriksson, it turns out that we are not nearly as innovative today as we used to be. I'm very sorry for being kind of a bore here, but we have a huge problem. A huge problem that in economic terms has to do with productivity growth. Now that is how we combine capital, labor, and innovation in a smarter and smarter way, so we have more output. That is more products, methods, systems, what have you. All of the things that we kind of think of when we think of the economic system we have and the values and the gains that are being created. Now, that economic system that used to produce productivity growth for us is not really welcoming new innovations like it did before. And it's a big problem because everything you ever heard of here in these 2 days somehow has to be accepted in that economic system. From a legal perspective, when it comes to big corporations trying to prevent change and so on and so on. And to try to make this very complex issue digestible in 10 minutes, we have to think of this in terms of diffusion. And how companies, big companies, the companies that really is dominating the value chains in the markets and everything from a global perspective, is reluctant to change. They even spend more money today trying to prevent change than creating something new. And they are powerful. And it's not just the food industry. It's actually, this is a problem throughout the economic system of the Western world. Sure, there are many exceptions, especially in the digital environment. But it's hard to escape the fact that company creation and company destruction has been going down for many decades, or at least for a long time in the Western world. And the same goes for job creation and job destruction. Now, that might sound like something that is really great, but it's not really, because change requires that companies are being destroyed and new ones are being created, and jobs are being destroyed and new jobs are being created. So that's why the French think tank organization OECD has concluded many years ago that there's something wrong. We need to fix the broken diffusion machine. So why is it broken? How do we fix it? I'm not going to talk about the regulation and policy matters in this session. It would make it much too complicated. And I will not talk too much about institutional ownership, although that is part of the problem. I will try to focus on a few things that we perhaps in this room can do to try to mend this, to get capitalism going again, if you wish, to get its mojo back, because that's what really diffusion is all about. And the first thing I think is very applicable to the food industry as well is that we need to allow failure. Now, there's a famous American, Austrian economist that usually is being quoted in disruption venues all over the Western world, and that is, of course, Joseph Schumpeter. And he concluded once that what is so brilliant with capitalism and the economic system we all live in is that it is really a perennial, it creates an innovation environment that is really a perennial gale of creative destruction. That is a perpetual machine for change. And it changed not just when it comes to companies, but individuals and so on. We used to live in a system that created always an embetterment. That was inbuilt in the system. Now, people love to quote this perennial gale of creative destruction. They tend to read only half of the quote. They like the creativity part, but they don't really listen when we talk about destruction. But it's just like when you do gardening. For something new to grow, the old has to wither. So we need to allow and embrace and work with failure as an important part of economic development. Secondly, we should all try to fight something we define and call corporate managerialism. That is, to put it in very simple terms, it's a corporate culture that is spreading, perhaps you could call it like wildfire in corporate land, especially among big companies. And what corporate managerialism is all about is controlling the future. Now that is a logical fallacy. There's no way you can control the future, but we live in a society that is trying to control the future, and big corporations especially are trying to control change in the future. So they try really, really hard and they fail. So they try even harder and they fail. So they try even harder until they reach a point where they have created such a mess of rules and regulations and stop blocks and what have you to prevent something from going wrong in the future. Perhaps them going out of business. Now, there's a number of ways you can see why this is happening and how this has happened. And for those interested, just look into how much companies have been bureaucratized over the last 4 to 5 decades. It's amazing. So we need to backtrack and step away from every time we try to do something new, that we force everything into quantifiable risk. That is putting the future in an Excel sheet and try to embrace uncertainties. Within uncertainties, there are great opportunities, but of course it's uncertain. But we need to embrace that. We need to try to step away, do not create more bureaucratic organizations, and try to be more entrepreneurial, try to embrace entrepreneurial grit, much of what we have seen over these last 2 days, which is very amazing. And we need to step away from how we plan and plan and plan, and try instead to see how we can contest markets and strategize for change. We also need to find the right owners, because institutional ownership has been on the rise for many decades. That has been very good, but also created a few very big problems when it comes to innovation and output. And we have to make a stand. Now, hedging, in any shape or form you do it, is really not for winning. It's for survival. And just to give you one example, any company cannot entertain 2 strategies that are equally important at the same time. They cannot do it. One thing that can happen is that they fail to deliver on any of them, or they favor one of them in front of the other. What they should do, and what big corporations should do today, is to look at what has been discussed here today and actually aim for change, for real, to change one of the business models into something of what we have seen. That would create change, not hedging. And it can be done, even in this sector. Actually, what struck me is very interesting when I was asked to go here. Approximately at the same time, Financial Times 1000 came out. It's a list of the 1,000 most fastest growing companies in Europe. That is actually headed by a company called Deliveroo from London, which has grown immensely fast based on a very simple idea that actually delivering to customers what customers would like to have in terms of food from nearby restaurants in their neighborhoods. Of course, it was connected to a lot of entrepreneurial grit and technology and all of that, which is great. But they actually show that the potential in the food industry to create change is great. However, we need to fight through the economic system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Björn, for delivering that. Thank you.